The definition of the propaganda poster has long been debated, and there are differing viewpoints about it. Many different types of propaganda posters were used in World War I, and through them the populations would only receive information that the government wanted them to have. Propaganda posters would twist the truth and allow the government to control the thoughts of the people and their viewpoints on the war. Usually people supported the war because propaganda posters allowed them to believe the war was worth fighting for. Some examples include convincing people to support the war, unification of the nation, conserving food, buying bonds, and joining up. Good example of literally propaganda posters would be countries fabricating the total number of deaths, or choosing to report information that was beneficial to them, and even eliminating information altogether. This would be done in order to give the illusion that fighting the war was beneficial, when actually it was devastating. They even produced music and postcards to get ideas through to everyone. Music is universal, and it was also an important part of the family during the time. Additionally, countries constantly relied on the poster to project superiority over the other warring countries. Posters were used to get people to enlist in combat. Some posters depicted how each person was a part of the war, how everyone had a responsibility, and they called for soldiers, female workers, families to save food so the armies could be fed, and the purchase of war bonds to fuel the conflict. Governments relied on people's emotions as they stirred the feelings of nationalism. Most average people have seen the poster of Uncle Sam staring as he needs you to join the army, and also a poster of a woman revealing her biceps, stating we can do it. Propaganda posters played on the emotions of human beings depicted as women, children, dogs, etc., used to stir and promote patriotism. To fight, you must be willing to be brutal and ruthless, and posters of ruthlessness and brutality shred the very fiber of the nation, motivating the Congress, the courts, the policeman on the beat, and the man on the street. Woodrow Wilson was a keen user of propaganda and used posters successfully to convince the United States to go to war. Propaganda posters were heavily and successfully used in World War I. They were especially valuable when used to manipulate people's thoughts and feelings towards the war and to paint the enemies of the nation. The propaganda poster, by definition, is information, ideas, and rumors deliberately spread widely, used to help or harm a person, group, movement, institution, or a nation. In this case, Britain used propaganda to help them define the enemy. However, they were not the first country to use propaganda posters. At the beginning of World War I, Britain was probably the weakest power to fight on the Western Front. This was important to Britain to search for ways to encourage recruitment. The British government did not issue drafts to force men into the army. They found a more subtle way. That would increase the number of soldiers and urge the British people to fight the war. The government decided to spread propaganda around like a contagion. Germany utilized the poster as a powerful instrument of persuasion and nationalistic fervor, well before Britain ever got started. The German people were depicted in their propaganda posters as being pure, strong, healthy, and in tune with nature. Germany did not use propaganda poster for direct recruitment. Instead, German posters depicted the enemy, especially the British, literally as being comprised of monsters or being subhuman. The propaganda poster was used to persuade people to support the war and to buy war bonds. Although the United States was the last nation to enter World War I on April 2nd, 1917, America had no problem getting almost everyone involved. Artists used propaganda posters to motivate Americans, old and young alike, to contribute to the role of the United States in war. The thought of glory, fame, and heroism was one of the main motivations for American male. The propaganda poster offered featured signs of heroism, convincing men that when the war was over, they would all be remembered as being heroes. Women were also targeted by the posters, helped serve their country as job replacements, worked in the place of the man who went off for war or as nurses. Illustrated articles mirrored the posters and were written by solidly nationalistic and portrayed the enemy as horribly as they could. There were over 8 million Germans living in America at the time, and many were sympathetic towards Germany, who found themselves dogged by the ever-growing anti-German feeling. Posters were used to help remind America to be careful about what they said and to be on alert for sabotage or spying. With propaganda incorporated into the game plan, the Allied chances of winning the war increased. In 1917, the United States finally entered the war and brought along with them the full fury of their propaganda, overshadowing other countries' propaganda and their powerful sayings. In the end, the British would not have been able to deal such a great blow against the opponents if not for the support given by the American Allied forces. With the examples provided, we can clearly see that propaganda and the poster played an important role in Allied forces during World War I. While the period of 1914 to 1919 represents a notable period of death and disaster, it offers a golden opportunity to study the expansion and application of persuasion through the use of graphic design posters used to deliver wartime propaganda.